relations firm of Shirley and Banister. And ResistNet.com is a hub for online organizing for anti-health reform protests. You can find there, among other things, a video entitled Obama Equals Hitler.
A Nazi rally. Color film reveals the theater of fascism.
Even Gorbanifar knew that you were supporting the Contras.
Yes, he did. Izvestia knew it. The name had been in the papers in Moscow. It had been all over Danny Ortega's newscast. Radio Havana was broadcasting it. It was in every newspaper in the land.
All our enemies knew it, and you wanted to conceal it from the United States Congress.
We wanted to be able to deny a covert operation.
For 35 years, I've worked in every major media market in the United States, and I've written for more than 100 newspapers and magazines nationally and internationally. So last September 17th, I became the first journalist in U.S. history to go to the U.S. National Archives and the Library of Congress and pore over the thousands of pages of documents in both places to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt or any refutation of the facts that Prescott Bush, the grandfather of George W. Bush, and George Herbert Walker, his maternal great-grandfather for whom his daddy is named, were Nazi traitors to the country who should have been tried for treason.
As a result of the Bush Nazi stories, which, as you mentioned, ran in New Hampshire, which happened to run in the oldest newspaper in the country, which Samuel Adams wrote for in 1756, called the New Hampshire Gazette, I was asked to go run in the New Hampshire Republican primary against Bush to basically, try to get the truth out in a kind of a unique, media climate opportunity. And so I did that, and my reward for doing that is that immediately after the New Hampshire primary in early February of '04, I was abducted off of an airplane by alleged Secret Service agents who I'm not sure were Secret Service agents, who said I was leading a plot to assassinate Bush, and interrogated me for 2.5 hours and let me go. And then a week later, when I got home to Miami, because I had been living up in New Hampshire for 5 weeks for the primary, I was arrested on phony felony charges and was looking at 70 years in prison for aggravated felony stalking of a victim they could never actually produce in court. An organization grew up online to get me a lawyer through the National Lawyers Guild, and that lawyer managed to get the charges against me dismissed in August of '04. And then I went out on a book tour for my book, Fixing America, and in October of '04, right before the election, after a speech in Cincinnati, I was taken in by real Secret Service agents for supposedly leading a plot to assassinate Bush. So that's why I moved to the woods of Georgia, where I live now.
Now, one other interesting fact, when you, about your court, when you finally got back to Miami, I wanted to touch on this. You were looking at almost going to jail because of what your public defender did before you got that attorney, right? Tell us that.
What happened was I had gone and visited lawyers in Miami and was told that I needed to put up about $50,000 for a defense, and I didn't have the $50,000. So I figured, hey, this is a terrible misunderstanding. I'm innocent. I didn't do anything, so I'll just go with a public defender. So I went with the public defender. I only talked to once on the phone before I showed up in court on August 11th of 2004. She meets me in the hallway outside, and I had gone to great lengths with the previous lawyer to make a 3-ring binder with all of my alibis in it, my phone records, where I had been in New Hampshire, at what kind of an event on these dates where I supposedly was making threatening phone calls and that sort of thing. And my lawyer takes me out in the hallway 5 minutes before my trial and says, I have really bad news. We lost your defense. You have no defense, and you ought to get your affairs in order because you're probably going to go to prison for at least 20 years.
And you did absolutely nothing. What were these bogus charges? Amazing.
The bogus charges were that I had committed felony aggravated stalking against a guy, oddly enough, that had briefly been involved, supposedly as an agent, to help me get the Bush Nazi story out. And what had happened was he had first lied to me and said he had deals with Le Monde newspaper in Paris and, all these media outlets, and was going to get me on Larry King Live and all of this stuff, and turned out to be a total fraud. And he ended up stealing the documents from me. He took the documents and wouldn't give them back, and I had to go back to Washington to recreate all of my research. I went to the Miami Beach police and attempted to get him arrested, or at least to have the police go to him and get my documents back that he had stolen. And the Miami Beach police, the same detective that ultimately arrested me, declined to do that and said that was a civil matter and I should file a lawsuit and whatever. So I ended up going off. That was in October of 2003. So I ended up going off to New Hampshire, etc. And lo and behold, he went to the police and said I had been threatening his life and his girlfriend's life, etc. And then he filed a false police report giving these dates that I had supposedly menaced him and threatened him. And as ironic twist of fate would have it, the same detective who had refused to help me go get the documents back now helped him prosecute me. His name was Osvaldo Ramos, R-A-M-O-S, and lo and behold, when I got home, I had one phone conversation with Ramos when I was in New Hampshire. He called me up and said that I was harassing this guy whose name was Jeremy Labor. And I said, how can I be harassing him? I'm in New Hampshire running for president. And to be honest, I think he thought I was crazy and didn't believe me.
My guest is John Buchanan, a investigative journalist, and I think it's safe to say, John, that the Bush administration would have loved to put you behind bars for a long time for crimes you didn't commit.
Absolutely, no question about it. It's really scary to be taken in by real Secret Service agents, much less Secret Service agents that may or may not have been the real thing. But it was a truly terrifying experience, and I'm just glad I was able to get through it.
Yeah, and I remember you telling me it's something that you never suspected. I mean, here you go, you print the truth, you get your ducks in order, you go to the National Archives, U.S. Congressional Record, and boy, lo and behold, they came down on you very hard, but you lived to fight for freedom another day. And after the whole thing, after the last incident in Cincinnati, tell us what happened. I know you migrated around for about a year traveling, and tell us where you're at now. And I asked you this question. What are you going to do in the future? And I think you've come up with an answer, but tell us what happened.
Well, first of all, I did in fact migrate around the country for about a year and a half. I was so afraid from what happened to me that, to be really honest, as I think I mentioned to you last time, I literally didn't feel safe living on my own as a 54-year-old man. So I stayed with other people around the country. The longest I lived in 6 states in 18 months, and the longest that I lived in one place was in Santa Cruz, California, with the guy who had actually spearheaded the getting a lawyer for me to get me off the hook back in August of '04. And then I finally decided to settle somewhere, and I decided upon the rural woods of North Georgia. I live in the middle of nowhere up on the Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina border. I'm in a place where I feel safe, and nobody's come looking for me for a couple of years, so I hope that chapter of my life is over.